I work at the University of Toronto in the Faculty of Applied Science and Engineering, and I look after the toys for the administration. I'm the Director of Administrative Information and Technology Services. We've got a 100-user license for where we're going, but we're nowhere near that yet. And the objective, the goal was basically to work smarter. So in one side it was the infrastructure management, so who do you call when the copiers break or rototoner or whatever like that, because it was a bit of a mess. And then the other side was how can we deal with the paper that we're pushing around. And that's the DocuShare side. And so we've already automated a lot of the things that aren't inherently about paper, they're just about process. So somebody could sign into a web page instead of submitting a piece of paper, so we were able to eliminate that paper. But for the ones that are about paper documents, like legal documents, I got married, here's my name change, or here's my immigration papers because I'm no longer on a student visa, I'm now a landed immigrant or something like that, where we had to have those originals and manage them. The place that we figured was most controllable, so we could manage the learning from it, and also where there was a lot of that going on was the student file. So within the Faculty of Engineering, we've got about 5,000 undergraduates, and they all have a student file in the registrar's office taking up banks of filing cabinets. And so we thought, well, let's see if we can redirect all those paper sources into electronic documents, and also hopefully be able to take things that are currently electronic and maybe living elsewhere and also integrate it with that, so that there would be one place where you could go and find all the information you need about your students. So that was the opportunity, and it's a longer term thing because there's a whole bunch of processes and systems that feed into a student file potentially. For one student they may only end up with 2 or 3 things. But over the whole population there might be 40 or 50 different things that could go in. We can't solve them all at once. So we said, let's start somewhere, so we started at the beginning. And admissions was a particularly, was a good opportunity because we deal with a lot of paper there. So there was a potential big win there. And it was also the beginning of the process. So if we could handle admissions for the incoming class, then there's a whole class that we don't have to create the paper files for in the first place. And then hopefully as we encounter things that population deals with, if we can automate those on the fly, then we never need to create it for them, and over a period of 4 years we can get rid of all of our active student files, 1 year at a time, or maybe 5 or 6 years depending on how long they take to graduate. So one of the challenges that we had is we had banks of filing cabinets that were taking up expensive real estate. We could use that space better for people who are actually doing things. Another one is because they were paper files, we couldn't necessarily find something. If somebody took out a file and put it on their desk and didn't put it back right away, or put it back in the wrong spot, or it fell off their desk for that never happened, by the way. If that ever happened, then we can't find the file. Whereas if it's electronic, multiple people can access it. And that's especially useful since we're distributed. There's other offices other than the registrar's office where they were held that might need access from time to time. And so if it's going out to a department, then nobody in the registrar's office has access to it. So that was the first one, is just the real estate and the ease of looking things up. So the last challenge and opportunity that comes to mind is that we could make better use of staff time if they can see how complete somebody's application is in real time, rather than having to go and examine each physical file and say, oh, do I have everything? Okay, now I can process it. Or, oh, no, I don't. Put it back. Go to the next one. Whereas if we have a database that's aware of how complete somebody's application is, then they can proactively make decisions about when I'm going to start to examine that file, so I can make an admit decision as early as possible and get the offer out to the person as early as possible. Our original process was to have the paper documents come in, we'd look at it, scan it so that it would go up on a portal so the students can see, yes, we got your package, and they wouldn't have to call and ask, did you get my package? Did you get my package? And we didn't have to answer those questions. Did you get my package? Yes, we got your package. So we were already doing that. But then we would just put it in the alphabetical file, and that was the end of the process until somebody decided that they were going to try and make a decision on that file. So it was not much work, relatively speaking. Now we had to pull everything out, remove the staples, figure out how many documents there were, put in separator pages, print a cover page with an intelligent barcode on it, go scan it. A lot more work. And the big catch was that we weren't coding up front what the documents were that we received. So until that process of doing all that stuff and scanning it and it arriving in DocuShare, then somebody looking at it, then they could say, oh, this is the high school transcript, but the interim transcript, or this is the final transcript, and now we can make our admit decision. So if that was getting held up anywhere, then they couldn't take advantage of a new process of just looking online. They had to go and pull the physical file and look and see, well, what did we get? So what we're going to do this year is, before we scan, the person who opens the mail essentially is going to look at it and say, oh, tag the package and say, okay, and it's going to bring up our database of the student file. And it's already going to have in it expectations of these are the 7 documents we're expecting for that type of person. Which one is it? Oh, it's number 3. And we're just going to put a random barcode on it and tag that. And so if that document with that barcode ever shows up in DocuShare at any particular point in time, great, our system will be able to point to it. And until it does, it just says, okay, well, we've received something. We already know whether or not we can process the file. You just can't look at it online until, if there's any kind of a backlog, until that gets cleared out. Because it's very bursty, the traffic, there'll be a period of time where we'll get 1,000 documents a day. And there'll be other times where we get 10. We're using Fujitsu high-speed scanner, and it's consuming multi-document packages. So we get a package from the student, and it might have 3 different documents in it. So we print out a cover page that identifies basically the applicant, their student number. And then we put generic cover pages separating each of the 3 documents. We load it into the Fujitsu, and it scans them and does some cleanup and sends it to AutoStore. And AutoStore unencrypts the barcode because the barcode is actually coming from something that was sent through the mail. So for FIPA reasons, we're not actually including the student's personal information. It's just an encryption. So AutoStore decrypts the barcode and looks up in our database some extra information and populates some, I guess they're called metadata tags also in AutoStore, some fields anyways, and then it sends it off to DocuShare with those metadata fields and names the file appropriately as well. And then that's when the Webernetics technology kicks in and says, oh, okay, based on these attributes, I'm going to create a directory if it doesn't already exist, file the document in there, do some more calculations of things based on information that's in our internal database. And then the user can go in and open the document, and there's a list that the Webernetics technology shows. It looks up in our system and says, what are the documents that you were expecting, which is custom for each person. And it shows you a list and allows you to pick one. So you can, for this document, oh, this is their interim transcript. So I can click on that one and it says, great, there's the link. And it puts it into a database that Webernetics is using, but also our application can see. And so when we're in our decision support system for admissions, we can see, oh, all of a sudden there's a link here for a document for this requirement. So the user can click on it and it just goes to DocuShare and pulls it up and they can see, rather than having to pull the paper file. The most value-added, most scarce resources that are actually making the admit decision don't have to go chasing around files. They can just click and get it real time right on the same screen. That's the value add. Now, we're looking at approximately 9,000 applications to admit a couple of thousand and ultimately receive 1,000. So that's a big overhead. So there better be value, a lot of value in doing all that scanning for something 90% of which is just going to go in 6 months' time once we're actually finished the admissions process. We were starting to look at the accreditation process that we're about to go through. So being a professional faculty in engineering, we get accredited periodically every few years, depending on how the last accreditation went. And we have to come up with basically an audit of the entire academic process, and the visiting team will go, I want to look at that. And so we have to have everything available and efficiently available to them, and they can decide they want to look at a typical exam or some graded work or a textbook or notes or whatever. And so last time we ran this, we'd fill a room with paper. So if we can replace that room full of paper with a virtual database of everything that people can quickly search and find what they need, multiple people at the same time, that's going to be a big improvement. It'll be a big savings for us in terms of effort, and it will also be a big ease of use issue for our visiting team. So when we started, we were tackling two things at once, and actually Xerox brought this opportunity to our attention. They said, we can help you consolidate your hardware fleet and put some technology in that makes it much easier and less expensive to look after, and at the same time we can also help you out with workflow management and saving paper and efficiencies of that nature. And so we did a study to see what we were currently doing, what some of the possibilities might be. And then based on that, we did an RFP. But it was what I call an omnibus RFP. It was for both sides at once. So the only people that responded were people who could do both the hardware and the software. And so we looked at, we had basically two submissions. And Xerox came in at a better price, and I think it was going to be a better fit. What Xerox brought was an eagerness to do a good job and meet our needs and understand our needs, and so that was compelling. U of T is a very decentralized institution. I work in the Faculty of Engineering, so the decentralization above me doesn't impact our use of DocuShare, but we also have departments working for us. And so student files live in the department. Rather, the department has a student file that they keep for all their students. The faculty has a student file that they keep, and there's, if the student lives in college residence, well then they probably have a file on the student, and so there's all these physical files all over the place. And it's the same with, HR. I'm sure that my immediate boss keeps a file, but HR probably also keeps a file, and maybe the chief administrative officer keeps a file or whatever. And so there's an opportunity with something like DocuShare to bring those disparate physical files into one place, and the stakeholders can still have their own piece of it, but there's the opportunity for not having to have out-of-date information in different places because it's being duplicated or missing information. And anybody who has the right authority and access to the information can see the whole picture without having worried about, is there something I'm not seeing? So I think that's a big opportunity for virtualizing the student files, staff files. So if somebody was asking me about document management, then I would say that there's a lot of features in DocuShare that are really useful to allow one to solve common document management problems and get a lot of efficiencies from. So yes, I would say that DocuShare is a great way to solve those problems. We want to use DocuShare in two ways. We want an end user to be able to go into DocuShare and use the built-in DocuShare functionality to search and look around and navigate what's there and see what they can find. That's one approach. An entirely separate thing is we've got all kinds of in-house technology that does very specific things and does it quite well. And we just want to be able to integrate access to what would otherwise have been a paper document from those systems. And so as long as we have a database behind our system, and there's the database in DocuShare, and we have foreign keys that point between them, then it's very easy to just click and get me the document. And so you can do both.